This time of year, you're always just a game away from being a game away. That's what makes the playoffs special.
Touchdown Bears! Let's go!
It's win or go home.
Long anaconda drives to put big scores on the board.
That's all about doing that together.
That's the model you need here to beat the 49ers.
Let's go! Let's go!
If they stay ahead of the sticks, we are.
Grab yourself a drink, grab a comfy chair. Welcome to the walkthrough.
We got to respond to it. We're good? Let's go. Stay locked in. Hey, we got to stay poised. Got to stay locked in.
All right, we got the Eagles hosting the 49ers. We got my buddy Ben Solak here, diehard Birds fan. ESPN, of course, you know him, you love him. There's the fun film nerd aspect of this game, and then there's like the historical legacy aspect to this game. And we have Kyle Shanahan, who's chasing his first Super Bowl, has had multiple cracks at it, hasn't been able to get over that hump yet. And we got Nick Sirianni, who is one of the winningest coaches ever in his first few years in Philly, just won a Super Bowl. And yet it feels like Eagles fans are more dissatisfied with him than Niners fans are with Shanahan. As a Birds fan, where do you stand on how Philly fans are feeling this year?
Yeah, I mean, like you won a Super Bowl and then you came back the next season. You're almost inevitably not going to win the Super Bowl, so there's inevitably going to be some frustration, right? Short of like those teams that we were very confident were dynasties at the time, right? Like when the Chiefs would fall a little bit short in the AFC Championship game or in the Super Bowl. Like this is what happens: you make a Super Bowl, and the next year you feel like you're supposed to do it again, and you don't. So like there is just a general degree of post Super Bowl angst that I think is reasonable from all fan bases. The particular nature of the devolving of the Eagles in 2025, however, is, categorically different, right? It's frustrating in the sense that we saw this before, right? 2022, Shane Steichen is coordinating the offense. We go to the Super Bowl. We almost win that game, 35 points. Wow, what a great offensive performance. He's gone. Let's internally promote, and the offense falls apart. So in 2024, we go get a new guy, Kellen Moore, right back to Super Bowl levels.
They prove week in and week out that they are the best football team in the National Football League.
It's all so hunky-dory. It's all great. He goes and gets hired away. And what do? We internally promote, right? And going back to the well of, we can just keep on being the same thing we are on offense, use all four downs. We have the tush push for such a good running team. Jeff Stoutland, offensive line. Like this will just continue forever. Kind of willful ignorance of the nature of the NFL where nothing actually lasts forever. And you have to always be innovating. You got to be on the cutting edge. The guy on the opposite sideline, Kyle Shanahan, being a great example of this, who just does not run the same offense that he first popularized, that made him the successful guy 5 years ago. And so, there's a little bit of like the goofy meme, right? Where it's like, I'll do it again. Like there's a little degree to which the Eagles are kind of just running the same loop that they ran from that 2022 into 2023 season now 2 years later. That I think is particularly frustrating for Eagles fans.
And what's kind of weird about it is even though the tush push exists, if you're looking at short yardage in third and fourth down situations this year, they're 23rd in conversion rate, which is almost unfathomable to me, right? For how this team is built. How would you explain that? And more importantly, is that an avenue where the 49ers might be able to make some hay here and flip this game?
Yeah, center guard is not nearly as good as it was for the Eagles last year, right? You have two of the three same players in left guard Landon Dickerson and in center Cam Jurgens. Both of them dealt with off-season injury into season injury. Both of them are clearly playing 70% of the level that they were the last season, right? How much of that is lingering injury, how much of that is changes, and a year further review from Jason Kelsey and opposing defenses know a little bit more about stopping the sneak. There's obviously there are confounding factors, but in general, Landon, especially at left guard, is just clearly hurt. Like, just not playing with the same degree of strength and control that we're accustomed to seeing from him. Jurgens, the same thing. And then the right guard spot, Mekhi Becton left in free agency for the Chargers. They replaced him with Tyler Steen, who was an internal development. And Steen has been fine, but Becton was like a legit needle mover in the running game. That was a big dude there at right guard. And Steen is more so just like an average player. And so center guard, the Eagles are just dramatically less effective than they were last year, both in like the typical designed running game and then in the sneak game as well. They still are really, really good converting in goal-to-go situations because they use all four downs. They'll chunk those little runs down all the way, and then they'll get that final touch push at the goal line. But the Niners defense has been really great in goal-to-go situations this year, which I think is a very big deal for this game specifically because, everyone's going to move the ball in the Niners. We know this defense isn't what we're typically used to seeing from Robert Saleh on the 49ers. It's a unit that's got a problem to give up yardage, but they're sixth in goal-to-go efficiency, right? They force field goals at the sixth highest rate instead of touchdowns. The Niners are going to score points on offense, and you're going to move the ball in the Niners. But if this comes down to we force you to do a couple threes instead of a couple of sevens, and then we in a playoff environment as the 49ers offense, we go for our fourth downs and we convert on those, we get our sevens, all of a sudden it's a trailing script in the second half of the Eagles. We know that they're not comfortable on that. And so Eagles are going to move the ball between the 20s. It's once you get to the 20 that things get serious. And even if like the Eagles get the big first half lead and get the stops, like we've seen them just die in the second half offensively. And like you telling me that 5 second half possessions, Niners aren't throwing their way back into this game. Like it's just hard to trust the Eagles against an offense like this.
Jumps, throws, touchdown. It's Kittle.
One of my favorite stats that I looked up this week is the 49ers have had 17 plays run against them from within 2 yards of the goal line. And they've only allowed a successful play on 9 of them.
I mean, that Rams win on Thursday night, right? This is the first game that they played when Mac Jones was still playing. Came down to a 4th and 1 stop inside the 30, and then Alfred Collins forced fumble inside the 3. And it's like, listen, is this how you want to live as a defense? No. But if you can get those 1 or 2 stops, that's all your offense needs, man. They can get those 1 or 2 stops.
They're not great as far as like a lot of metrics, but I still think this is one of the best coaching jobs Robert Saleh's ever done. This is a team that going into the wild card round, every single linebacker that was on their starting 53 is injured right now. Fred's injured, Winters is injured, Bethune's out, Martin's out, and Gifford's out. And so knowing that the 49ers are not great overall on defense, but they've just gotten it done situationally. What is the Eagles' matchup advantage here? What's their like ultimate trump card that they can just throw on the table and say, we win? Like how do they overcome that?
Yeah, he wears 11. He's the angry man over there to the offense's right. His name is A.J. Brown. And he is just really good in these particular games in which you're facing a secondary that's not super big. Like, I think it is true that he's not separating to the same degree. He doesn't have the same juice in his routes that he has in seasons past. But A.J.'s never been a guy that's like, I'm breaking ankles and I'm running away from dudes. It's just, hey, I get leverage on a corner, and then I'm much bigger and much stronger than that corner.
A.J. Brown into the end zone, just like that.
While Diamador Lenore, who previously was a nickel for the 49ers and now plays outside corner, and Renardo Green, the second-year player, are both like pound for pound impressive in terms of their play strength. They both hit, they both tackle, they're both willing to play physical. They're just not big dudes. So you're going to get big boyed a little bit by A.J. Brown. If you go and you look at Niners defensive metrics against like wide receiver targets, they allow the 5th highest completion percentage because structurally they're allowing you to get the ball to your receivers. If you go and you look at like downfield targets, they have a negative completion percentage over expectation. Like they can test the ball well, but they're still giving up like top 10 success rate, top 10 EPA per dropback, because you can just win above the rim on these guys. And if you're in the positive script for the Eagles, where you are moving the ball and you are ahead, well, you can start putting the ball to A.J. Brown up in the red zone, throwing the ball there into the end zone, avoiding those goal-to-go situations we talked about. Or if you're on the trailing script, you think about the Eagles against the Rams this year in the regular season, they're down by 2 scores. They come out in the second half. What's the plan? Just get A.J. isolated with a corner and start throwing the ball up there. Like you really do like those matchups stylistically against the 49ers cornerback room.
Fun fact, by the way, 49ers corners have allowed the 4th most touchdowns 20-plus yards down the field. Right, because everything is a one-on-one down the field. Doesn't matter what the coverage is. It's just about can you go up and win the ball in the air, and they have not really been able to this year. On the other side of the ball, it's not just about getting stops in goal-to-go situations. It's also like, can Brock put points on the board and just kind of keep them at pace here? And the difference in the style of defense that he just lit up in Chicago versus what he sees in Vic, it's so wildly different that I almost struggle to predict how he's going to do here, right? Because Dennis Allen, he prioritizes middle field close structures, and he is very static with that. If you're looking at all the snaps of cover 3 that they ran against the Niners and all those condensed formations, he had 32 cover 3 snaps that were static of like, we are showing it pre-snap and we are in it pre-snap and staying in it post-snap. Purdy has always been very good at just ripping up static cover 3. That doesn't have any sort of rotation component to it. Whereas if you look at what Fangio does, it's all rotation. Like we're starting too high and everything. You don't know what you're going to get. It's very rotation focused. And so it's such a different type of coverage here. I struggle to project how Purdy is going to attack it. Do you have any sense of how this Eagles secondary matches up with the style of passing game that the Niners have and Purdy's skill set?
Yeah, it's funny because the solution for many years past would be, well, don't worry about it, just run the football, right? Like that's what the Niners do so well under Shanahan. Not been a good running team this year, right? Just not finding explosives, not finding yards after contact. It's the offensive line isn't nearly as good, right, as we're used to seeing. And then McCaffrey, like great in space player, just not a banger between the tackles. The Niners tend to be, okay, well, we're going to get more, design throws out quick, where we're going to get McCaffrey in weak side option routes. We're going to get George Kittle on screens, right? And we're going to look for yards after the catch to buttress what would otherwise be our running game solution to this, right? And then you start making it a yak game, and you trust your athletes against some of the Eagles tacklers in space. Nakobe Dean will be back for this game. Nakobe Dean's a great player. He's not very big, and he's got quickness. He doesn't have long speed. So if you can get the corner on Nakobe Dean, you can go get yourself a big play. There's no Andrew Makuba at safety. He was the starter for the Eagles, and so it's Reed Blankenship and Marcus Epps, who is a street free agent that they signed and brought back to the team. Reed and Marcus are solid players. These are not Talanoa Hufanga level hitters at safety. So you get one-on-one opportunities, you can go break a tackle.
So I'm going to close you out with this. It's kind of a two-part question. The Eagles win if X. And if they lose, how does that affect the standing of Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and Kevin Patullo?
Yeah, they win if they avoid negatives and they finish drives, avoid turnovers, I should say. With Jalen Hurts, since the 2024 season, it's just been about, hey, don't turn the football over, no interceptions, no fumbles, and we will eventually anaconda the other teams. Our defense is great, our line is great, the ancillary pieces are great. And that's probably true against San Francisco. They're a better overall team. They have to be able to avoid the turnovers so that drives actually end in points and preferably end in 7 instead of 3, right? Long anaconda drives that put big scores on the board. That's the model you need here to beat the 49ers. If they lose, Sirianni's not losing his job. Everybody can be as frustrated with him as they like. Sirianni got a ring 12 months ago. They would be, even for somebody who doesn't fully understand what he does, it would be ridiculous to fire him. It would not make any sense. There will be an offensive coordinator change. Short of the Eagles having a Super Bowl run on the back of 4 40-point performances, I think there will be an offensive coordinator change regardless.
Well, I'm interested to see if they poach Davis Webb from Denver and then immediately lose him to a head coaching job in 2027. We could just repeat this cycle every other year.
I'm on to Mike Kafka. That's why I'm like with Kafka. Old Eagle great Mike Kafka. Get him to the building.
That's the flavor of 2026, Mike Kafka. Oh man, Ben, I appreciate you taking time out of fatherhood to do this. I know you're a diehard Spurs fan, so you take any excuse you can get to talk Eagles. And hope you enjoy the rest of your wildcard week.
Thank you, Brett.
The defending champ, not always pretty, but almost always ending on top.
There's something dangerous about a team that doesn't stop fighting.
The most iconic rivalry in football, the only one that I would definitively put slightly ahead of Steelers-Ravens, and that's Bears-Packers, because it's been around for, over 100 years at this point.
Packers, Bears, on it!
Despite that rivalry being triple digits old, this is only the third time in NFL history that the Bears and Packers have met in the postseason. The last time being 2010, which, if you don't remember, was a pretty good game too.
Haney over the middle, picked off by Shields. And Shields takes it the other way. The Green Bay Packers are going to ride to the Super Bowl on that.
Legacies are very much on the line here, and believe you me, Packers fans have a lot of leniency for the end of this season, considering how many injuries they've taken, right? You lose Micah, you lose defensive linemen, you lose receivers, you lose Tucker Kraft, you lose half the roster, right? And so I think Packers fans are very understanding if they don't win it all this year. They will not be understanding if they don't beat Chicago. You could have 8 guys out there and they expect you to beat Chicago. They will not tolerate losing to this team, at all. And likewise for Bears fans. Again, they're kind of playing with house money at this point. Nobody expected them to be the 2 seed in the first year of Ben Johnson. But they cannot tolerate losing to Green Bay, especially after 2010. Bears fans want blood.
Let me tell you something. The city of Chicago is hungry too. The city of Chicago!
You're talking about a rivalry game, an NFC North division rival. It was chippy last time we played. That's a pretty good indicator of how it's going to be.
And if Chicago is going to pull it off, and if they are going to win this game, it's really about using their run game to get into favorable third downs, which I know sounds like a cliche, but just walk with me here. Green Bay's defense is very good. We went over that in the last episode where we brought on Cody Alexander. We talked about all of their exotic coverage structures. And it's not even really that they run crazy coverages. It's cover 3, it's quarters, it's cover 2. It's all the normal coverage structures. They just get into them in very fancy ways, right? They're rolling safeties and DBs and linebackers all over the place. Nothing ever looks the same post-snap that it does pre-snap. But that kind of goes out the window in third and medium, right? Where they become a more man-heavy defense in third and medium compared to a very zone-heavy defense in 3rd and 7 plus. That's why winning on early downs is so important, is so that you can get into 3rd and 5, not 3rd and 8, because their defense schematically completely changes if you're in 3rd and medium, and I have some numbers to back that up. Per Pro Football Focus, in 3rd and 7 plus, Green Bay's defense only has a 13% man coverage rate. Again, they opt for very exotic post-snap rotations into very basic zone looks in 3rd and 7, and they use that to slow down a quarterback's eyes so they can scheme up a pressure to get home. Whether Micah was on the field or not, that was typically, their game plan on 3rd and long. In 3rd and medium, so 3rd and 3 to 6 is what we'll call 3rd and medium, they have a 45% man coverage rate. So it goes way up, like over triples in terms of 3rd and medium. And that's because their way of getting pressure on 3rd and medium is a man pressure. So they're still sending 5 guys at the quarterback, but they're playing man coverage there instead of zone coverage. They're trying to tighten the space and keep receivers matched up man-to-man. Here's the problem. They're not actually that good in man coverage. And if you're looking at passer rating allowed in single coverage this year, they have the 12th highest passer rating allowed at 99.4. Obviously not very good. They are very much a zone coverage team than a man coverage team, and that's a big reason why their conversion rate allowed on 3rd and medium is way higher than their conversion rate allowed on 3rd and 7 plus. So there's a massive swing in 3rd down effectiveness if you can just get them into 3rd and medium, which requires running the ball really well on 1st and 2nd down. That's exactly what the Ravens did against them. If you're looking at the carry split that Derrick Henry had there, again, he had 36 carries. Only 3 went for a loss or no gain, so they always went forward, or at least almost always went forward. They had 11 that went for a short gain of 1 to 3 yards, 18 of those 36. So half of those carries went for between 4 and 9 yards. So it's just consistently keeping this offense on schedule. And he, quote unquote, only had 4 explosives, which is 10 plus yards. But again, out of 36 carries, only 4 of them being 10 plus yards for Derrick Henry. Like, you would think that would be a good day on the ground against him.
Derrick Henry with a hole, touchdown! King Henry rules all in Green Bay.
Looking at the carry splits for the Packers against the Bears this year, 5 out of 58 Bears carries went for no gain or a loss, so only 8.6% of those. That's pretty good. It's roughly the same amount as Derrick Henry, percentages-wise. 18 of those 58 went for a short gain of 1 to 3, and 31 of those 58, over 50%, went for a good gain of 4 to 9 yards. So the Bears' run game against the Packers mirrored what Derrick Henry did. It's just Derrick Henry did it 36 times in one game. The Packers did it 58 times across 2 games. I would basically just take what Derrick Henry did and do it that same amount, right? The Bears never ran as much as the Ravens ran it against the Packers. So lean into that even more. Rely on Kyle Monangai, rely on DeAndre Swift, get you 4, 5, 6 yard chunks at a time. Keep them out of 3rd and long, because if you're not in 3rd and long, that means the Packers' X factor, which is Xavier McKinney, can't flip the game on its head.
Going deep, looking for Judy, and it's intercepted. Xavier McKinney.
The reason why Xavier McKinney scares me is because when you have 2 teams that want to shorten the game, right? 2 teams that want to have 9 possessions max in this game, which if you're looking at their average possessions against each other in their 2 meetings this year, the Packers were at 9 drives per game. The Bears were at 8.5. That's extremely low, right? A lot of teams have like 11, sometimes 12 drives a game. So the games are really condensed because these drives are really long. They're very run heavy. And the fewer number of possessions in any given game, the more weight there is on an individual possession. If Xavier McKinney generates a turnover, which he has done a lot of in his career, I mean, he tied for the league in interceptions in 2024. He darn near had one against Caleb in their last meeting. He dropped it, but he almost flipped the game on its head in that game. The Bears ended up getting 3 out of that drive instead of getting picked off, which then led to them being even in position to win that game in the first place. But the fact that there's so few possessions when the Bears and Packers play each other because of their style of offenses, that means that if there is a turnover in this game, it has a profound weight on the rest of the game because there's not a whole lot of clock left to work with because these teams keep grinding down the clock on each other. So the reason why Xavier McKinney is the X factor, if he just gets 1 turnover in this game, I'm not asking for him to have like an all-time, like, get me 3. If he gets 1 in this game, That is massive, like absolutely massive. I know it sounds like a cliche, but the reason why it's massive is because each possession matters so much for these style of offenses. And hell, if you're looking at the games that the Packers lost this year, it's because they got down in the mud against teams that thrive in low possession count games like Cleveland and like Carolina, and they turned the ball over, right? And it cost them because one turnover in a low possession game can lose you the game. So if the Packers get that turnover, I like their odds to win. If Caleb is safe with the ball and doesn't, essentially gift Xavier McKinney one of his trademark out of left field interceptions, I like the Bears' odds to win this game because it feels like, in terms of personnel that's left on the field that's healthy, the Bears have a personnel advantage, but personnel advantages can go out the window if you turn it over. So if Caleb plays a clean game, he doesn't let McKinney, flip it on its head like he almost did last time, the Bears probably win. They probably run it 35 plus times. They keep the Packers out of 3rd and long, and they just kind of grind them into dust, and they win this game.
It's no fluke. You are mentally tough, you're physically tough, and you fight all 60 minutes.
But at the same time, I am concerned about it because if there's one team that knows how to beat Chicago, it's the Packers.
Let's go! That's what I'm talking about, man.
All right, Chargers, Patriots. It's the Spider-Man meme game because we just got two quarterbacks that look and play exactly like each other, staring across and pointing at each other. Justin Herbert on one side, Drake May on the other.
Herbert's got a man down the sideline. McConkey for the touchdown.
He loads up. He throws a long ball down the right side for Kyle Williams. He has it. Touchdown, Patriots.
Both of them are phenomenal deep ball throwers, and especially deep ball throwers under pressure. As far as the overall matchup advantage that the Patriots have here, and it's the same matchup advantage they've had all year long, it's the fact that they have Drake May setting the pace for the game early and often. His deep ball is just flat out incredible, not just from a production standpoint and an efficiency standpoint, but from like an aesthetic standpoint. Like very few quarterbacks have this perfect, consistently perfect placement of their deep ball, 22 yards down the field, drop it over the shoulder of the receiver. Like he just makes it look easy. His receivers don't even have to work that hard to make some of these catches. Like the ball is just like he could walk over there and hand it to him and put him in the same spot.
Man, that boy alien, dog.
Like he has one of the best deep balls that I have seen in recent years. It reminds me a lot of like a prime Russ moon ball, except he does it even more than prime Russ did, if you can believe that. They are 4th in completions of 20 plus yards down the field this year at 32. That's almost 2 per game. That's crazy. What's even crazier is that Justin Herbert is barely behind that at about 28, despite being under pressure, let's just say orders of magnitude more than Drake May this year. And what's also interesting, like maybe the true X factor here, the true secret weapon, if you will, that might keep the Chargers in this, is that Quentin Johnston is their best deep receiver. Like you would think it's Ladd McConkey. You might even think that it's going to be, Arondé Gadsden, but no, it's Quentin Johnston working down the field.
To the end zone, Q caught into the end zone, touchdown, Chargers.
His development as a receiver has been awesome to watch in the Harbaugh era. Like you're not really hearing about the drops anymore. You're just seeing big plays every single week. And so you're going to see bomb after bomb after bomb in this game. And quite frankly, I'm excited for it. It's just going to be haymakers all day long.
Makes you feel like a man.
The real reason why the Chargers have a shot here is if they can keep pace with Drake May's deep ball, just haymaker for haymaker, that then takes away the advantage that the Patriots defense has had all year because of the way that Drake May sets up the script for the game. If you're looking at weeks 1 through 11 specifically, that's when they had Milton Williams on the field. He's their best defensive player this year, even over Gonzo. I know Patriots fans might be offended by that, but I think he's the straw that stirs the drink there. They're getting Milton Williams back for the playoffs, but if you're looking at weeks 1 through 11, when he was last healthy, they were 9th in EPA per play allowed, but in the first half specifically, they were 21st in EPA per play allowed. And they were only 20th in terms of pass play percentage faced. Right? Before games got out of hand, before teams had to throw a lot. You contrast that with the second half where they are first in pass play percentage faced. It's almost 70% pass plays in the second half. And that's because Drake May builds these leads, right? He's taking shots down the field. They jump you early. They get you into a pass-heavy script in the second half, and that's where the Patriots defense can really take over, right? If they get you into a situation where they know what you're going to do, which is throwing the ball, and you get Milton Williams all lathered up, and you know that Christian Gonzalez is out there at corner, you know, they got Marcus Jones at nickel, who's phenomenal. Like, if you get that predictable against this Patriots defense, they're going to eat you alive, which is why in the second half this year, their EPA per play allowed is 6th best in the league. Again, first half was 21st. So this is very much a second half defense, but that's because they have a first half offense with Drake May. That all goes out the window if Justin Herbert can keep up blow for blow. And the Chargers also have a pretty darn good defense too, no matter what half it is. So this is very much a snake in the grass kind of game. And even though the Chargers have their own difficulties, like we know their offensive line is not great. In fact, per Pro Football Focus, if the Chargers win this game, this would be the worst offensive line to win a playoff game since they started charting in 2006. Right now, the current record holder is the 2011 Giants offensive line. So there has not been an offensive line this bad that could potentially win a playoff game in like a decade and a half. But because they have Justin Herbert, because they have Quentin Johnston, because they have Ladd McConkey and Aronde Gadsden and Amari Hampton, like if you have that kind of skill position talent and that kind of quarterback, all things are possible, not to mention that kind of defense. I would say the Patriots are on upset alert here. The key is they have to jump on them early. They have to get the Chargers into a pass-heavy script and let that defense take over. If they go blow for blow, if this game is close in the third and the fourth quarter, not even in the fourth quarter, in the third quarter, I'd be a little bit worried for the Patriots here. You know, it's a young quarterback. It's a young team. A lot of them haven't played a lot of playoff football. Things can slip away from you quickly in the playoffs. But again, if they jump on them early, if they do what the Patriots have always done this year, they have a pretty good shot to win.
We put the work in. Let's go put this on display.
All right, we got the 3-6 matchup in the AFC. Jags hosting the Bills. And to walk us through it, I have my friend Greg from Cover One in the house today. If you're a Bills fan, you're very familiar with Cover One. They do the best X's and O's breakdowns and Bills content out there. So I'm going to be, I guess, playing the role of a Jags fan in this segment and explaining all the matchup advantages that they still have as the host team here. And then Greg's going to basically trample all over that and tell me why it's not going to matter and why Khalil Shakir is the key to winning everything. How are you, Greg?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on. It's very exciting to be able to talk through everything here. And yeah, a little bit different position for Bills fans to be in after this recent run. It's going to be interesting to dive into it.
The thing that kind of concerns me about the Bills here, specifically with the matchup with the Jags, is a lot of the Jags' flaws that they had early on in the year. And I was very critical about Jacksonville, even when I think they started 5-1 on the season. But if you're looking at a lot of the underlying reasons why they started so hot, okay, their defense was forcing like 3 turnovers a game. They had a whole bunch of extra possessions. They weren't a very efficient offense by possession, but when you get 3 extra possessions per game and you're starting in opponent territory because you're picking the ball off, like you are going to put points on the board. But there was significant issues there. They had a bad screen game. They didn't run the ball well enough. The receivers were dropping passes. Trevor's missing throws. There was a lot wrong with Jacksonville.
Gets rid of it and intercepted.
But as the season went on, though, and especially post Jacoby Myers trade, a lot of the flaws that I was very concerned about, I don't want to say got fixed, but absolutely got better, right? They ditched the screen game. They leaned into the run game more. Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington emerging as absolute warriors over the middle, you know, making big-time catches in big-time moments. You know, even with BTJ taking a step back this year and even with Travis Hunter getting hurt, they were still able to have a very productive passing offense because of those guys just catching the ball, which is the job description of a wide receiver after all. So I almost look at the Jags peaking now and almost like overcoming their flaws, whereas the Bills, it's been kind of a roller coaster this year where like their flaws don't show up all the time, but when they do, you get like the Falcons game. And I just don't really know what version of the Bills we're going to get, because the best version of the Bills can beat the best version of the Jaguars. It just feels like we don't always get the best version of the Bills.
Yeah, I think the trending for the Jags and all Jags fans should be very encouraging. Whether you're looking at weighted DVOA or any of the different metrics that are out there showing how well, exactly like you said, that they're peaking. The game that I go back to is that Broncos game. not that Bills fans would ever poke at the strength of schedule for an opposing team. We would never do that. But in theory, if you were going to poke at the strength of schedule for an opposing team, when you look at the Jags, beating up on the Cardinals and the Titans in that later version of the Colts and the Jets, like, okay, that's cute. That's great. But when you go into Denver and put up 34 points on that defense on the road, that was a wake-up call for me, and I think should be for every fan base in the AFC, where like, oh, this isn't your same old Jags, because the Jags have had peaks and valleys for years. They've had moments where they look incredible, but then also come back down to earth and stub their toe against the Titans and things like that. So going into Denver and putting up that performance was just such a wake-up call for me to say, oh, all right, I guess we do have to take them very seriously.
Touchdown to Brenton Strange. A 3-yard touchdown pass, and Jacksonville has retaken the lead.
Some different approaches here in the playoffs, and there's maybe some glimmer of hope. You look at the run defense the Bills have put together against Cincinnati and against Pittsburgh and against Philadelphia down the stretch were much more encouraging to at least show that the capability is there. But if they let this Jags team get ahead of the sticks and play, from any semblance of a lead, I think game script's going to be huge. And that group of pass catchers is a problem right now. And I love Christian Benford. I love the secondary we put together. Our pass, defense numbers are very encouraging, but that's a lot of weapons to try to stop down there in Jacksonville.
Now, matchup advantage wise, the best matchup advantage for the Jags, in my opinion, in this game is not even the guys catching the ball from Trevor. It's on the other side of the ball. It's the defense that Anthony Campanelli's put together. And there's a lot of different influences that you can see in this Jags defense. There's, a lot of like really aggressive blitzes that, remind me of like a Brian Flores in Minnesota, where it's just like, screw it, we're setting everybody in the backfield. But coverage structure wise, you see a lot of the lessons that I think he took away from working with Vic Fangio in Miami a few years back. The structures where they're building double teams around key weapons and key situations, right? So like third down, Vic always game plans his coverages so that wherever your best receiver or most reliable receiver is on third down, if he's outside, we're putting a half field safety over that side. We're going to make sure he doesn't get deep. If he's inside, we're going to build a bracket there. And he has these dynamic zone coverages. Specifically, he calls it like a Zeus call or a lowered call, which basically it's 3 to 4 coverages in one, and you don't know what coverage you're going to be in until you see where that target receiver lines up. And so I look at the Bills, and on third down, it's the Khalil Shakir show. Like that's just what they do, right? If they're in third and medium or longer, it's Khalil Shakir. Third and short, it's James Cook, or it's Josh with his legs. And so I look at Anthony Campanelli taking some of that Vic Fangio DNA and how he builds coverages to take away the number one guy in an offense like this one that is lacking a lot of premier receiving talent, to say the least. And my concern is that if Campanelli's doing that and he's taking away Khalil Shakir on third and long, what do they got? Like, what's the secret weapon here that can counteract that? I'm not sure that they have one, honestly.
It's certainly been a discouraging season from a receiving standpoint. We've gone through such a group of musical chairs. Obviously, the hope for Keon Coleman early, moments for Curtis Samuel, then a revolving door of trying Elijah Moore, and now we're at Brandon Cooks and just trying all kinds of different pieces to see Mecole Hardman at moments. Can you find anything that can connect? And the only piece that we've had is continuing to try to push over the middle of the field, take advantage of that attention that Khalil Shakir is there. And it's really been on Dalton Kincaid. And that, the frustration is, you might as well legally change his name to when he's on the field. But Dalton Kincaid, when he's on the field, there are some unbelievable metrics out there. And you look at yards per route run on the season. Obviously, everyone would expect Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And Dalton Kincaid's at 2.79. He's third in the NFL. When he's on the field, he is incredibly impactful. And what he allows that defense to do, the on-off splits for EPA are night and day. One of the best offenses in the NFL to a very mediocre offense. So the good news is the Bills are going to have Dalton Kincaid there. He's the only thing that stops teams from completely focusing solely on Khalil Shakir. And the idea that maybe they can at least press that and get a 4-game run where both of them can be on the field at the same time is their only chance to take advantage of this.
There's been a few different examples throughout the season of teams like clearly over-indexing on Khalil, like whether it's, him working down the field or in the screen game, and all of a sudden Dalton Kincaid's like wide ass open because everybody's diving on him. There was a particular play against the Chiefs. They were in a 3-by-1 to the field, right? And they just had like double China with like a slap fade, right? And you could see how the Chiefs were lined up before the snap. They dropped the safety down, and they were basically holding up a neon sign of like, we are doubling Khalil Shakir. You can beat us with anybody else here. You're not going to beat us with Khalil Shakir. And then, of course, they dropped the touchdown to Kincaid because he had all that space to the field, like almost unlimited grass to work with. And if you give Josh that much grass to work with, he's going to layer in the throw. But that particular play might be the only thing that could give me hope for this Bills passing game against this defense, because I'm pretty sure Campanelli is going to do exactly that. He's going to take away Khalil Shakir and say, go ahead, beat me with Kincaid. Like, I trust my linebackers. I trust my safeties. If you make the throw and you make the catch, tip of the cap to you. But I thought it was hilarious in that Chiefs game how like they made their intentions very clear. We are playing 1 double 10. We have a spy on Josh. Make the throw. And he made the throw.
It's Kincaid and a Buffalo touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, you see Shamar Connor come down on that play and is so laser focused on Khalil Shakir, doesn't even see Dalton Kincaid, running directly by him as, unfortunately for the Chiefs, Drew Tranquill slips and isn't able to keep up. But it would have been a big play either way. It was going to be a huge one there. And you see that repeatedly throughout the season where there's just such a laser focus on Khalil Shakir. The Bills actually built in additional counter screens. Obviously they have spammed that wide receiver screen to Khalil Shakir to death. It's, one of the banes of the Bills fans' existence, because we see it coming so often. So we know defensive coordinators see it coming. They actually put a counter screen to that on the other side to Ty Johnson, just to be able to have something off of there. We've been waiting for them to, give a pump fake to that and send Shakir on a wheel route around the end, because teams are jumping those so quickly. And it's just an example where you have all of that gravity and attention and focus. And on this one, again, you have Connor comes up, is directly looking right at Shakir the entire time and has a chance to catch, Kincaid and to be able to support Tranquill there, but he leaves him isolated. And again, I don't think Dalton Kincaid is the best tight end in the league. I don't even know that the yards per route run stat is completely indicative of how good he is, but it shows that he is much more than capable of beating a linebacker in single coverage. Like, we'll take that every day of the week. So if they can get that isolated, and we see that from the Jags where they're bringing that extra attention, and we get a chance where it's a Louis Kahn or Devin Lloyd in space, like, I'll take my chances. I'll take my chances there. And, Shakir is still going to be a huge part of the offense. We still have to make them honor and respect that. But if they're going to overcommit to that, you have to make them pay. And our best chance to make them pay is Kincaid.
Finds the man in space, and here he goes, Kincaid, down to the 9-yard line and out of bounds.
If I'm trying to predict who's going to win this game, I lean Jacksonville just because they're a very, very hot team right now. I mean, they're playing at peak confidence level, even compared to like that 5-1 start. Them walking into Denver and just kind of slapping them across the face and saying, what are you going to do with about it? That to me shows that this team knows how good they are. They know that they have a very hot quarterback. Like, they believe in Parker Washington. They know Jacoby Myers was the missing piece. They're really, really keen to lean on Travis Etienne to do the dirty work, especially in the low red zone. The defense, they have a real pass rush. Like, it's just a very, very complete team. So I lean Jacksonville to win this one. If the Bills lose this game, what does that mean going forward for Buffalo? Like, do they get leniency whatsoever?
I think it's incredibly unlikely we see any change without a really embarrassing performance. I think that's the one thing that could change this. If they lose in a shootout, this is a flawed team. Heck, literally right now as we're recording, we don't have a kicker. We literally don't have a kicker on the team right now. That there's a lot of genuine questions to be asked about the team. Michael Hoyt was a big part of the pass rush plan. We had him for a game and a half. All the different pieces there of what they planned on this being. Max Harrison getting dinged up in the final game of the season. there's a lot of genuine questions where you can chalk that up to be like, all right, this wasn't a great opportunity. If they go out, they play well, and they lose in a tough shootout, I think that there'll be a ton of frustration. I think fans will be asking for heads, but I don't think any actual change is going to happen. The thing that could trigger that is if you have an embarrassing loss, if they come out there and let's say they do exactly what they did to Denver and it's 34-20 and the score isn't as close, the game isn't as close as what the score is. And the one person is if Josh Allen loses confidence in this leadership group and isn't sure that that's the group he wants to be tied to going forward, he's the one voice in Terry Pagula's ear that could trigger change in either direction. I think that there's a possibility that Brandon Beane could lose his job with or without that. There's just been enough misses and whiffs, and this wide receiver room has just been enough of a miss that there's a chance that could happen. Again, I think it's less than 50-50, but a chance. For Sean McDermott, I think it would take Josh Allen telling Terry Pagula directly that he's lost confidence in him as a leader, and I don't expect that to happen. I think it would take an embarrassing game for that to happen. And if that happens, I think all bets are off. I think everything is possible. But short of an embarrassing loss here, I think that despite many fans' requests, I think you'll see this leadership structure come back and that they'll hope for better health next year.
So a lot on the line here for a 3-6 matchup, maybe more than we're used to for a 3-6 matchup as far as coaching legacies and coaching jobs at all. So I'm excited to see what happens. Thank you once again, Greg, for coming on and helping to break this down a little bit for us. It should be a hell of a game.
Yeah, should be a ton of fun. I think it is going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be very entertaining. Maybe not good for my cardiology health. My cardiologist may not enjoy this game as much as I will from an entertainment standpoint, but appreciate you having me on. This was a ton of fun. Really looking forward to it.
We stay here. Stay here. We're not getting high, not getting low. All right? One day at a time. We'll keep stacking. All right? Love y'all. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
All right, next game here, we got the 4-5 matchup in the AFC. The Steelers hosting the Texans.
Stroud circling, throwing, end zone, touchdown!
Rodgers protected, throws to Austin for the touchdown!
And this game is fascinating to me, not just because I'm a Texans fan. I'm literally wearing Texans gear right now. And it's also not just fascinating because it's on a Monday for once, not Saturday, like every other Texans playoff game of my lifetime. The reason why I'm interested in this game is because the Texans were probably the only team that was just as angry as the Ravens that they missed that field goal last week, because the Ravens are a much more manageable matchup than the Steelers are for the Texans. And the reason for that is the Steelers are built to take away what the Texans do best defensively. Right? All eyes are always on that defensive line for the Texans. They get a lot of pressure. They affect the quarterback a lot, but their style of rush gets mitigated by the style of passing game the Steelers have. So the Steelers' pressure rate allowed this year, per our friends over at Next Gen Stats, is actually the lowest in the NFL, only 21.5%, which is ridiculously low. Second place is like 6% higher than that. And the reason why it's so low is because Aaron Rodgers doesn't hold the ball long enough for pressure to even be registered. It's not that they have a dominant offensive line, it's that they have the fastest gun in the north under center for them.
You slower than a 42-year-old? Is that why? You're slower than a 42-year-old?
And if you're looking at average time to throw, again, among all starting quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers has the fastest average time to throw at a whopping 2.59 seconds. Again, that's average. Right? So half his throws are going to be even faster than that. The median in the NFL is 2.85. So he's more than 0.2 of a second faster than the median on average. Like, that's ridiculous. So defenses just don't have time to get to him. And that creates a huge issue for the Texans because the Texans' style of pass rush, while it is very consistent at generating pressure, their average time to pressure is slower than you would expect, right? So Minnesota is the fastest in the NFL. Per our friends at Pro Football Focus, as far as average time to pressure at just 2.33 seconds, the Texans are 0.2 of a second slower, quote unquote, than that, because their style of pass rush is all about pocket compression, right? They want to close the walls in around the quarterback. They want to get them nervous. They want to get them into a tight pocket, make mistakes, try to, drop their eyes when they see the pocket compressing, create tips and overthrows opportunities for their secondary. It's a very power rush based pass rush. Whereas if you look at, Minnesota, who again has the fastest average time to pressure, that's more blitz heavy. It's more about creating free runners, right? We're throwing 7 guys at the line of scrimmage, or we're going to run a simulated pressure where we're only rushing 4 guys, but it's not the 4 that you expect, right? Mike McDonald always talks about this as well. You show pressure from the left, you bring it from the right. You show pressure from the outside, you bring it from the inside. These kind of smoke and mirrors defenses that are very sim pressure heavy and very blitz heavy tend to have a low average time to pressure because they're getting these free runners. Whereas the Texans, they just line up and play, right? They don't do anything fancy on the back end as far as coverage. They don't disguise anything. They just line up and say, we're better than you. Deal with it.
Got him! Let's go! Let's go! Got him!
So even though the Texans have won all these games in a row behind that dominant defense, they happen to be playing against an offense in Pittsburgh that is okay with playing against this style of defense, because Aaron Rodgers is very comfortable in tight pockets, and he's very comfortable just throwing it in 2 seconds flat to all his running backs over and over and over again and just getting yards after the catch. So I anticipate this is going to frustrate the Texans defense a lot. The only way that I can see the Texans defense taking control again and allowing that pass rush to flourish, and this is their matchup advantage, is they also have really good corners on the outside. They can play press man coverage against DK Metcalf, basically just against DK Metcalf, honestly. You got Derek Stingley, you got Kamari Lassiter. If they can play press man and just slow down Rodgers a little bit, make him hold the ball for that extra 0.2 of a second, now we're cooking with gas. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter will have time to get home. But they're going to need to line up and handle DK one-on-one in press man and slow him down. That kind of is the game to me.
Hey, not away!
Now, as far as the quote-unquote secret weapon for the Texans on the other side, offensively, I look at play action shots deep down the field. Since week 13, when Stroud came back, they are third in terms of yards per attempt on 20-plus yard play action throws at 10.5. That is crazy high. Only 2 teams have been above them there. And if you're looking at the style of play action they run, they're also very good at mitigating what the Steelers do defensively, right? The Steelers against play action throws have the second highest pressure rate in the NFL this year, because oftentimes when they're facing play action, it's against 5 offensive linemen and either a running back or a tight end in protection. You're sending TJ Watt off the backside edge against a tight end or a running back, or sometimes he's unblocked if it's a naked boot, and they're just immediately on the quarterback. They're not playing the run at all. They're playing the honestly, they're playing the run on the way to the quarterback, if we're being realistic about it. But the Texans, as we broke down in our last show, when they're running these deep play action bombs, they got 6 offensive linemen on the field. They lead the league in 6 offensive lineman looks. And so you're dedicating that extra tackle to that backside edge, which is either going to be Watt or Highsmith or sometimes Herbig. And so it just kind of slows them down enough, and you're keeping Stroud in the pocket so he can step up. Again, we're firming up the offensive line by having 6 of them on the field. And at that point, we got Noel deep down the field. We got Jaden. We got Nico. Everything turns into a one-on-one when it's 40 yards down the field.
Firing deep downfield, right side end zone. Higgins with the catch.
Offensively, both of these offenses kind of match up well against each defense. If I had to predict who's going to win, I lean the Texans for various reasons, but mostly I think they're a more complete team.
Yeah!
But by no means do I think this is going to be an easy game. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be low scoring, not because, again, the offenses don't match up well, but just I don't anticipate there being a lot of possessions in this game. It's cold. It's outdoors. And quite frankly, the Steelers have this weird blood magic that they do where games that you don't think they're going to win, they end up being in till the very end. So if I had to make a prediction, I'll say Texans 20, Steelers 17, and it'll probably be uncomfortable for me and the rest of Texans Nation the entire time.
Had a great time here. Had a great time here.
All right, next game on the docket here, we got the 4-5 matchup between the Panthers and the Rams. This is a rematch from earlier in the season where the Panthers already beat the Rams.
They're bringing pressure.
There it
down,
goes!
strips the ball.
Go!
It's picked up by Carolina.
And the Panthers come away with an upset victory and snap the Rams' 6-game win streak.
And that game, I think, was a good microcosm of what the Panthers are this year, right? Which is when they win the turnover battle, they can beat anybody. They knocked off the Packers. They knocked off the Rams. But if they fall behind and if they don't generate extra possessions, they tend to get obliterated, honestly. But we love them, right? They're great television. I'm not saying they're the best team in the NFC. They're probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but by God, they're entertaining. I will say, though, it's a very narrow path for them to win this game, in my opinion. You got to thread a lot of needles while hitting a lot of green lights. I'm not saying it's impossible, but they have to win the turnover battle again. That's kind of been their way of winning this year. They get a couple takeaways on defense. They generate a couple extra possessions. And similar to when we talked about the Packers and Bears game earlier, this ball club really focuses on pace control and lowering the possession count. They run the ball a lot. Not always the most efficiency. They commit to the run. They try to limit possession counts to about 9 per team per game. And if you win the turnover battle, even if you're just +1 in a low possession game, that's how you get these high variance outcomes like what we saw in the first Rams game where they picked off Stafford a couple times. So that really is the formula here. Jump as many routes as possible. Try to get a takeaway here. If you get greedy and you give up a bomb to Devontae or Puka, you kind of live with it, but you got to take risks on defense. You got to get extra possessions, or they're probably just going to get whittled away by the time they get to the fourth quarter.
Just stay with it. Stay with it. One at a time. Stay with it. Come on.
Now, as far as the secret weapon for the Panthers, if they do get those takeaways, to me, it's Jalen Coker. I know people look at T-Mac as the number one there, as they should. I think T-Mac is awesome. He's obviously an offensive rookie of the year candidate. I think he's going to be a staple in Carolina for a long time. But Jalen Coker is the glue guy to me. And if you're looking at how that Panthers offense has operated since Coker got back from injury, I think it was around week 7, week 8 or so, he lines up a lot in the slot, but he does get snaps outside where he can use his size to his advantage because he is a bigger receiver. He's kind of in that, ironically, Puka Nacua power slot role, but the Rams still put Puka outside sometimes so he can just bully smaller corners on go balls, and the Panthers do that with Coker as well. In fact, they did it against the Rams the first time they played. Coker got a go ball touchdown down the boundary against the Rams, who have a size deficiency at corner. So again, my secret weapon here beyond Coker is just the Panthers' size at receiver. They outmuscle these Rams corners before. I think they can do it again. Not to mention, they do a lot of stuff with Coker that is reminiscent of how the Rams use Puka. Like they'll line him up, off the line of scrimmage. They'll kind of condense him in and release him through the C gap on like a crossing route, as part of their play action pass game. And it works almost every single time. He's just a really, really solid glue guy piece to this offense. And if they get one extra possession and they can put T-Mac on one side, Coker on the other, the Rams just don't have the size at corner to deal with that. So again, it's a narrow path to victory, but it is a path.
We just fight. We don't know how to do anything else but just keep fighting.
But as far as the matchup advantages that the Rams have, and the reason why ultimately I think they will win this game, is because on a down-to-down, drive-to-drive basis, Carolina cannot block this defensive line.
They ain't never going to be enough. They ain't never going to be enough. They ain't never going to be enough. They ain't never going to be enough.
Almost nobody can block this defensive line. If you look at our friends over at Next Gen Stats, they have a 38% pressure rate. The Rams defensive line does. That's top 5 in the NFL this year. And quite honestly, you watch some Rams games this year, that feels low. Like it feels like it's more like 70%. They're in the backfield constantly. They play with violence. They play with speed. This is a defense, like when they run stunts and Jared Verse spikes inside, and he hits the left hip of the guard and sends him flying, and you got loopers coming free because of all the chaos that he creates. Like they're so good in the stunt game. They're so good at pocket compression. When they do call blitzes and they're sending nickels off the edge, like that defensive line soaks up so many resources that guys just run free.
Pressure up the middle. He spins out. He is sacked.
Ultimately, I do think the Rams are going to win this game. As long as they just don't lose the turnover battle, they'll probably be fine.
We want to spike that. We want to dance. Earn the right to dance. Earn the right to dance.
I think Panthers fans are very happy to just be in the playoffs again for the first time in a long time. And it's a building block for 2026, which to me is the real year that we might see the Panthers take a step.
That's what we're going to talk about. You know what? We're going to talk about. Great job. Good job. Good job. Good job.
I do hope that you guys make it a point to sit down and watch this game, and particularly watch Matthew Stafford. I don't know if this is his last ride, but after all these years in the league, and especially coming into a season where we didn't even know if he was going to play, like people forget that he had, serious concerns about his back as recently as like a few days before the season. I want you guys to sit down and appreciate Matthew Stafford. This, even by his standards, is the best he's ever played through all of his years in the NFL. And I don't know how much longer we're going to get this. So appreciate it while you can. This is the type of quarterback that you're going to tell your kids about one day, maybe tell your grandkids about one day. He's one of the best the league has ever seen, an all-time quarterback talent. And this might be his last ride. So appreciate it while you can. And also appreciate Carolina Panthers chaos. Both of them are good TV.
Let's go! Let's go!
All right, one more segment in today's show. We got 3 and out. So it's 3 bonus topics for you. And then we get out of here. First topic in 3 and out, the Las Vegas Raiders. What to do at first overall. They are officially on the clock now, and all eyes are on Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback, who, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, is QB1 in this class, should he eventually come out. We assume he is because Indiana got a quarterback to commit to them in the portal, which kind of tells you that Mendoza's coming out, but it's not official yet, but we're assuming. But Mendoza is the kind of quarterback that you're more than happy to take it first overall, right? Like, he's big, he's strong, he's got an arm, he's mobile, he's smart. You know, he's 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 off the field, I would even say. Like, he is what you hope for if you need a quarterback and you're picking that high in the draft. So, again, we assume the Raiders are going to take him, but the debate is, are they ready to take him? The NFL is littered with quarterbacks who went to a situation that wasn't very good, and they didn't have a supporting structure to help them develop. They ended up going later in their career to a better supporting structure, and all of a sudden they look like the quarterback they were always supposed to be, right? One of them got the number 1 seed in the NFC this year in Sam Darnold. Bounced around, was in multiple bad situations, ended up being a backup in San Francisco, then went to Minnesota, got an opportunity to start, led them to almost getting the 1 seed in the NFC last year, then went to a new team and got the 1 seed in the NFC this year. So Sam Darnold obviously is a case study for that. But on the flip side, you have the Patriots, who, in my opinion, their roster, when they took Drake May, was even worse than the Raiders roster is right now. Patriots didn't have a Max Crosby of their own. They didn't have a Brock Bowers of their own. They didn't have an Ashton Genty. So again, you could argue that this Raiders roster is more ready for a quarterback than the Patriots were. But the Patriots also recognize that they were not going to have another opportunity to draft a quarterback like Drake May. So even if they weren't ready for it, they were just going to do it and figure it out and hope he survived a bad rookie year. And then, 2025 was the plan. They were hoping to surround him with enough talent and a better coaching staff, which they did, by 2025 to get to where they are now, which is also a team that pressed for the 1 seed until the very end. So there's 2 different ways to become a juggernaut here. The question is, which one of the Raiders, right? Are they the Patriots or are they the Seahawks? Because if they're the Seahawks, you keep Max Crosby, you use the first overall pick to trade down and get even more assets from like the Jets or something like that. You bring in a whole bunch of talent and you sign Malik Willis, right? Who's, potentially going to be the next Sam Darnold, a veteran quarterback who was in a bad situation, goes somewhere else, develops, looks good when they get a chance, then they go off and they be a starter somewhere else and succeed. So maybe Malik Willis is the new Darnold. You use the draft to get a whole bunch of assets and build around Malik Willis. Or are they the Patriots where they just say, screw it, we're going to take the quarterback, we're going to trade Max, we're going to get assets from Max and then put those into the offense and get better offensive linemen and better weapons and just hope that Mendoza works out. I don't know which way they're going to go here. Well, I can assume they're going to take Mendoza, but I do think it's a legitimate debate. The reason, or the tiebreaker, I should say, for why I would probably, when all is said and done, lean to just taking Mendoza is the financial side of it, right? It's going to be a lot cheaper to just draft a quarterback and have the 5th-year option and have the franchise tag. You have at least 6 years of contract control at way under market value for a good starting quarterback compared to Malik Willis, who in all likelihood is going to sign a 2 or 3 year deal that will then catapult him into a mega deal in 1 or 2 off seasons. So I anticipate that Mendoza is going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than Malik Willis will be. And even if Malik Willis is a better quarterback in 2026 than, say, Mendoza is, if Mendoza is like 80% of it, but for a third of the money, that's a good roster building value. So I would probably lean towards just taking a rookie quarterback in that respect. But at the same time, it is a legitimate discussion. So I would love to get your guys' opinion down in the comments below what you would do, because Malik Willis, I think, is really good, but Fernando Mendoza is pretty darn good himself. So, again, it's a debate. Maybe not a long debate, but it's a debate. Now, next topic, speaking of the Raiders. They called me a madman in the offseason because on this very channel, I put out a video which was the 4 teams that I thought were better than what everybody expected. And those 4 teams were the Patriots, who ended up, as a very high seed in the AFC when everybody thought they might win like 8 games. You have the Seahawks, who a lot of people had them as 3rd or even 4th in their own division. They ended up as the number 1 seed. And the Panthers, which you could argue I only get half credit for that one because they still didn't win 10 games, but they did win the division. So, again, I'll give myself partial credit for that one. So, 2.5 to 3 out of 4 correct here for the teams that I thought were better than national consensus. It's just the other one, the 4th one, was the Raiders. So, maybe that call was so bad it brings me back down to a net of 0. I don't know. I'll let you determine that. But, there were a lot of comments that said that I was absolutely insane for putting some of those teams as my underrated teams going into the season. And I just want to say, sometimes I accidentally get things correct. We'll see if I can keep that streak going in 2026. By the time we get through free agency and the draft, and I can really dive into these rosters and coaching staff changes, I'll probably make another one of those this coming off season. But maybe you'll be a little bit more hesitant to call me insane this year. Now, third topic for 3 and Out. Best fits for job openings. Again, slightly touching on the Raiders here. But there's been a whole bunch of openings that have happened just since the end of the games until now. And I'm recording this part 2:20 in the afternoon, West Coast time on Monday. So maybe there's going to be even more openings. But as of right now, we have the Falcons open, we have the Giants open, we have the Titans open, the Cardinals, the Browns, and the Raiders. And then GM openings, as of me recording this, are the Dolphins and the Falcons. So a lot of openings around the league. I kind of want to go through some of my favorite fits for these. So starting with the Falcons, my favorite trio, I guess you could say, a package of different people, because we've heard all along now that Matt Ryan is potentially going to have a role in this front office in 2026 and beyond. We don't know exactly what that role is, but something like that doesn't get reported unless there's significant movement on it. So I'm assuming that's correct. So I was trying to think of, okay, what are top head coaching and GM candidates that have connections to Matt Ryan? Because usually these things are like a package deal. And I'm looking at Jeff Hafley, the Packers DC, who we've given a lot of airtime on this show the last couple episodes, and Tariq Ahmad, the 49ers Vice President of Player Personnel, I believe is his title over there. So Hafley and Ahmad go back 15 years to Rutgers, right? When Ahmad was their director of recruiting, I believe, at that time, and Hafley was a position coach. Hafley also was on the 49ers staff and got retained by Kyle Shanahan when he left Atlanta, where he was coaching Matt Ryan. Shanahan went from Atlanta to San Francisco, retained Hafley as one of his position coaches for a couple years before he then moved on for a bigger job. And a few years after that, all of a sudden he ended up as Boston College head coach, which, by the way, Matt Ryan, Boston College alum. And then, of course, he went to the Packers. So there's a lot of different BC Matt Ryan connections here, but Ahmad also, again, 49ers, he was there with Hafley also at the same time. So they've been at destinations together multiple times, worked together for a long time. Both of them know Matt Ryan. It just kind of made sense to me. Like, I think Jeff Hafley is going to be a head coach one way or another pretty soon here. And even though the Falcons' defense wasn't necessarily the issue, in fact, I would probably retain Jeff Ulbrich on that staff. I think Hafley and Ulbrich together could be a kind of a dynamic defensive duo. Bringing in Tariq Ahmad to take over the GM role after Terry Fontenot got let go. So again, this is all just food for thought. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but it's hard to find a better trio than that, in my opinion. Now, as for the Giants, I kind of go back and forth between Kevin Stefanski and Mike McCarthy for this job, because I think it's key to have an offensive mind that can work with Jackson Dart, get the best out of Jackson Dart. In the end, I'll probably lean Mike McCarthy there just because he has a track record at multiple stops, obviously won a Super Bowl in Green Bay, back-to-back really strong seasons in Dallas, even though it didn't end the way you want it to in the playoffs. Like, that was a really good team in Dallas under Mike McCarthy, and I thought his offense significantly evolved and modernized when he went from Green Bay to Dallas. That year off in between, I think, really benefited him. They never struggled to score points there when he was there. So I think McCarthy would be great for Jackson Dart. He has a very, very strong track record, and he's going to get hired somewhere. I'll tell you that much. Mike McCarthy will get a job in this cycle, and I'd be willing to bet the Giants is one of his destinations he's most wanting to go to. Now, as for the Raiders, there's been a lot of connections drawn, obviously, to Brian Flores and also to Brian Dable in the last few days when it became apparent that Pete Carroll was not going to come back. I tend to agree with that consensus. I would probably favor Brian Flores to get that job with the Raiders. He has done masterful work in Minnesota. He's been one of the best defensive coordinators since he got there, in the entire league. As far as how Miami went, I think he learned a lot of lessons from that. And I think when you go from being in the Patriot way and that very, very intense environment, and the Patriots were kind of the only team in the league that did things that way, and they only got away with doing things that way because they had Tom Brady, who ironically is also now in Vegas. But that was just a very unique situation. And I think Brian Flores, when he got away, not just from New England, but also from Miami, and he went to Minnesota and he saw how KOC does stuff, I really do think that that's probably changed his outlook on the best ways to be an effective coach. We know that schematically he's incredible. I do think that he's a very good motivator. All of his defensive players love him. They speak glowingly about him all the time. So I'm not worried about him being a motivator and a quote unquote players coach and everything like that. He's just a very intense guy. And I think he learned that not every player responds to that the same way that, say, Tom Brady does. So again, lessons were learned. I think he makes a lot of sense with the Raiders. I think he's a very, very good coach. And I would also bring in Brian Dable, who, again, is thrown around a lot in this head coaching cycle. I would bring in Brian Dable to be the OC. I'm sure he would love to coach a quarterback like Fernando Mendoza, try to revive this Raiders offense, because that's going to make Brian Dable also look like a very attractive head coaching candidate. So if there's not a job in this cycle that Brian Dable wants, other than maybe the Raiders job because they get the first overall pick, but if he doesn't get the Raiders job as head coach, I'm not sure if there's another job out there that Dable really, really would want to take over right now. So you go to Vegas, you be a hotshot OC again, you develop Fernando Mendoza, you turn this into at least a solid offense in year one, and you see what the openings are in 2027, because his name would probably be right at the top of the list and he would get his choice again. So from a career move perspective, it makes sense for Brian Dable. I think it also makes sense for the Raiders and where they're at. And I think it'd be a hell of a duo there, the Bryans, so to speak. Now, next up, the Browns. This news just came out a few hours ago that Kevin Stefanski was not being retained in Cleveland, so that job is open. And the name that I have tabbed for that one is Vance Joseph, which I don't know if that's at the top of any Browns forums lists as far as head coaching candidates that Browns fans are paying attention to. But Vance Joseph is a really, really darn good coach. He also has head coaching experience. And I want to remind people of the turnaround that he was in charge of in Denver. This was a defense that gave up 70 points in a game to the Dolphins when Mike McDaniel was fresh in Miami. It was one of the worst defensive performances, arguably the worst defensive performance ever. And by the middle of that same season, after making significant personnel changes, jettisoning, unproductive veteran edge rushers and letting young guys like Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning at the time get more snaps, McMillan, get more, he had all these kind of diamonds in the rough on the roster that weren't getting playing time. By the middle of the season, he elevated those guys and he turned kind of a no-name defense into a buzzsaw from September to December, and they were excellent, and they've been excellent ever since then, just continuing to stack talent on that unit, and they've just been awesome. So I want to remind people that Vance Joseph did that, right? They brought in Jim Leonard, and Jim Leonard himself is an excellent coach, and he helped in this process of turning the Denver defense into what they are, but Vance Joseph was the architect of 70 points in a game into an average of under 20 for a significant stretch of time. So he's a great coach. Again, he has head coaching experience. And part of the reason why I like Vance Joseph for this job is because he would then bring Davis Webb with him. Davis Webb, if you remember, was playing in the league a few years ago, right? He's on like the Kellen Moore track of being a veteran backup quarterback who was essentially playing the role of QB coach as a player, immediately went into coaching. In fact, he played an extra year when he didn't have to because he had coaching offers, but he still wanted to be a player for one more year. But, everybody knew he was going to be a coach, and everybody knows he's going to be a head coach within 3 years. But he's kind of that new, young, hot shot, former quarterback, offensive mind that's coming up through the ranks. I think Vance Joseph would bring him with him to be his OC in Cleveland, and I think that would be very successful. All right, next up, we have the Titans, who obviously this job's been open for months at this point, and the search has now accelerated in earnest because there's more candidates available after the season. And one of those freshly available candidates that I think is a perfect fit is Kevin Stefanski. He is not going to stay unemployed for long, folks. I can promise you that. He is going to get a job in this cycle. If I had to bet on it, I think he will. And part of the reason for that is a lot of other teams look at the personnel situation he had to deal with in Cleveland, which I understand, also partially his fault. He is the head coach. He does have some say in personnel, but as far as roster construction, I don't think that the quarterback room as it was constructed and the tackle room as it was constructed and the receiver room as it was constructed is exactly how Kevin Stefanski would have done things. I'll just say that. It was not a good personnel situation there, at least on offense. And that's not to say that Andrew Berry has not hit on some picks and hit on some transactions, but a lot of the stuff that he's hit on tends to be on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball was pretty barren. And I think there's only so much that an offensive coach can do. If they can't block anybody and they can't catch the ball, and if the quarterback turns it over a lot and takes really bad sacks. I know that he's supposed to elevate everybody there, but I really do think that that's what the elevated version of that Browns offensive talent pool looked like. So there's only so much he could do with that. I really do think he's a better coach than what the record indicated in the last couple of years. And if you put him in Tennessee with Cam Ward, who I think is a very talented young quarterback, and you invest in a new right tackle in Tennessee, and you invest in just bringing in, like, let's say Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce, I think, is going to be a free agent. He's exactly what I think Cam Ward needs, is a field stretcher that also can catch the ball. They're really not that many moves away from being a pretty darn capable offense in Tennessee. But they need a coach like Kevin Stefanski. They need another receiving weapon, and they just need more consistent tackle play, and they'll be okay. So I think Kevin Stefanski is a natural fit in Tennessee. I think that he would want that job. Like, who wouldn't want to work with Cam Ward? He's super dynamic, and that to me makes a lot of sense. Last job opening here. We have, at least job opening as of me recording this. I don't know if there's going to be more available by the time this comes out. But as of me recording this, the last job opening is the Cardinals, and I'm looking at Clint Kubiak for this one. As far as, younger offensive minds, and, that kind of archetype of head coach hire, because everybody loves to get the hotshot OC, and then you pair it with a young quarterback, because I assume there's going to be a new quarterback in Arizona in 2026. That's the formula that a lot of teams have tried, and some of them have had a lot of success with it, some of them not so much, but I'd be willing to bet the Cardinals kind of want to go that route here. So Clint Kubiak makes a lot of sense. We know he brings an offense that for decades at this point has been a very successful formula, a lot of under center, a lot of outside zone, attacking down the field off the boot game, working the intermediate middle of the field, a lot of the principles of offensive football that are very successful, especially right now in the NFL. Clint Kubiak preaches those. I mean, hell, if you go back and you watch my video, from over summer where I said the Seahawks offense was going to be good, it was because of that fit between Darnold or the schematic fit and skill set fit between Darnold and Kubiak. So again, I am very high on Kubiak as an offensive coach. I think what he does works at the NFL level. And I think if you pair him with a young quarterback, again, I'm assuming that Kyler Murray is not going to be a Cardinal in 2026, because if he was, he probably would have played some games in the back half of the season, if I had to guess. So again, I'm assuming he's not going to be a Cardinal, but you pair him, Clint, with a young quarterback, like say if Dante Moore comes out from Oregon, or maybe if they like one of the projected day 2 guys like Drew Aller. Sorsby, I think, is going back to Texas Tech, so he's not coming out. It's a relatively thin quarterback class, but there are guys to be had. You pair Clint with one of those guys, you have a young quarterback, you have a young offensive head coach. It's a formula that's had a lot of success around the league, and I think it could have success in Arizona as well. Also, one quick thing. Please flood me down below before you click off this video with topic ideas for 3 and Out next week. This is a good area of the show where I think I can address topics that I normally wouldn't get to during game previews and game recaps and schematic breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. So if you have an idea or you have a request for a topic you want me to hit in one of these future episodes, do that in the comments below. I thank you for watching and listening, however you happen to be watching and listening, and the algorithm gods thank you as well. I hope you all enjoy the wild card round, and I will see you back here for the division round.